So I made this video or a video for this book like probably 2 weeks ago, and I looked through it and I was like, man, I'm gonna redo it because I want people to go and support Ken Landgraf. So I don't want to show every single page. I've taken some pages that are important, I think, to me, and I kind of just wanted to go through this. Ken Landgraf is one of my favorite artists, obviously known for his New York City Outlaws work, and he's done some other work. I think he did a Wolverine story, I believe, and you can pick this up on his eBay. Uh, you can pick, on his eBay store. I picked this up because I'm just a huge Ken Landgraf fan. I kind of wanted to get inside of his head and figure out exactly how he goes about drawing the human figure, because I think he's one of the best. He's very different. He's very unique. He's not everybody's cup of tea. I can totally understand that. Some people kind of look at this and they go, his artwork doesn't look like Alex Ross's, so I'm not into it. But I think his art is unbelievable. And I have kind of looked through this a few times and kind of looked at the process of how to kind of understand how he does things. My advice for this book is, first off, you should absolutely pick it up. By the way, I have no connection with Ken Landgraf. Ken Landgraf has no idea who I am, so it's not like I'm sponsored or anything like that. I'm a huge, Ken Landgraf fan. But my advice for this book would be obviously pick it up, but also, um, this is kind of a book that I would say is used for reference. So like I would not say that this is like, oh, the anatomy book that you should get. However, or I mean the only anatomy book that you should get. You should obviously get real anatomy books and obviously figure drawing books. But what makes this interesting is kind of you get to learn from Ken and how he does things, because there is a lot of useful information here. So I'm going to kind of open this up and go through this. I know I've been rambling, but I'm going to try to do this the best I possibly can, and not show every page. Now, obviously, Ken did a great Wonder Woman sketch on the back, and then he wrote in the front, "Good luck on drawing." From Ken Landgraf. So here we go. I'm going to try to do this the best I possibly can without showing every single page, um, which can be rather difficult. But anyways, so he goes through things like planes and the curve of the body and how you curve around it. You go around a form. Um, and also, I mean, there's such great drawings in here, but he even kind of breaks things down, like the trapezius being like a kite shape, which is very cool. Or some people compare it to a diamond shape. So very cool, and how he shows like the forms going on top of one another and how they're shaped. Any anatomy book will give you this information, but Ken kind of stylizes it and breaks it down. I mean, uh, the knee is drawn in three planes. He shows you that there's a top plane, a middle plane, and a bottom plane. Planes are a kind of hard thing to understand when you're beginning to draw, so I would definitely not advise this as a beginner drawing. But like once you understand the concept of planes, and once you understand the concept of like what connects to what, this is an unbelievably cool book because you get some information in there. Great drawing of the back muscles, the curve of the back, and all the muscles there, and of course the deltoid, and then we have the latissimus dorsi and the teres major. Everything is correct, which is so Ken knows his anatomy. It's not like he's kind of faking it or trying to do things like some other um, artists that kind of do these things do. He knows everything, so he knows where these pieces are. He knows where this anatomy is. I'm trying not to give away every page, Ken. I'm sorry. Um, he goes through foreshortening. Super important. How things, closer to you are bigger and how things further away from you are smaller. Basic perspective stuff, but if you don't understand perspective, you should absolutely learn perspective. That should be like the number one thing that you learn in the beginning. I did not start with perspective because I was like, I just want to draw the figure, but it'll teach you how to kind of put those forms in, which is super helpful. He goes over, this was really helpful to me. The breast, looking at it in a three-dimensional form. You have a top, a front, and the sides. I didn't think of it that way. So it's kind of like this weird cube. So the way that I learned from this is I draw it as like a cube, more so like a cube, and then I sort of I make it rounder with those forms. So I learned that from Ken. I never thought about that. I would always kind of draw it like two dimensionally, and it looked like shit when I did it. But Ken explains it that even the breast, every part has has 3 dimensions to it: top, front, back, side, whatever it is. He goes into drawing hands and feet, which are very difficult. Um, yeah, arms. He goes through the arms. He shows you the planes, which is super important. Trying my best not to show every page. Um, Showing you how to draw in perspective. He goes into 3-point perspective. He covers 2-point perspective. Very important stuff. It kind of goes out the window when you start twisting things, sort of, kind of. The way that I was taught is that each form, so you have 3 major forms. You have a head, you have your chest or rib cage, and you have your pelvis. The way that I learned was they sort of have their own perspective, but if you're drawing a scene, you're going to want to at least draw your character in a cube area so you can say, okay, like that guy's inside that cube and he's showing you from a 3-point perspective. Very cool stuff. Going through C curve, how your arm will curve. Uses V curve as well. There's also S curve. Very important stuff. The arm has its own curve, just like the other body parts. So you want to make sure you get that curve. Very important. I learned from Bern Hogarth that you should draw it on the outside of the arm. So like your curve would go up here and then your curve would go up there. If that makes any sense. Like if you're drawing, I just want to make sure I'm not drawing on it. So if you're drawing that form of that arm while you're trying to get that gesture, you're going up there to the elbow and then you're going around. So that you're getting this shape here. It's a Bern Hogarth thing. Almost said boner. Very weird word to be in my mind. Goes over the planes of the legs. Legs are really difficult. Really, really difficult. For me, the toughest things are the shoulders. When you get to kind of the scapula and going around the collarbone, it's a little difficult for me. The legs are also very important. Those are like my problem areas. Hands and feet, whatever. I just understand that there are a lot of forms kind of moving in separate ways. The leg and the shoulder are more difficult from a structural standpoint than they are about like the motion standpoint. But I did have trouble with motion. Bern Hogarth also kind of taught me the same thing about you would about the arm is sort of, there's a motion in which you draw the leg, but it changes obviously from the view. That's the thing that's difficult about drawing is everything that you learn. You'll learn one thing and then it will go out the window when you move it even a tick. So sort of you just have to know you have to know a bunch of different ways of doing things, and then eventually it begins to click. What else we got here? I'm trying to show off every page here. Talking about the motion of the back. Twist and turning the body twists and turns. Twisting and turning is a very difficult thing to understand. But with enough practice, you can understand it. Basically, the way that you want to do it is you want to make it so that the center lines of your forms don't line up directly, if that makes sense. They kind of have a twisting motion. Or you use like not contrapposto. Contrapposto is important, but you kind of just move. You just have to figure out the flow, really. That's really the big thing. Goes more into drawing female anatomy. He covers male anatomy obviously too, but it's nice that he covers female anatomy. I have another one of his books which I'll go over at some point that covers just female anatomy. And then he also has a perspective book too, which I will go over probably at some point as well. Love how he breaks it down to kind of like the simple block form. Just important, you know. This confused me though because it's like, oh, okay, everything, but you have to like draw forms on top of that, and you have to like break that apart. But that kind of just gets you like the idea. It's not the answer. It's how you get to the answer. I suppose is the right thing. He goes over the breast some more. Goes over the butt, the planes, and the back. Very very important. Just like the breasts, you kind of draw this part and you just go, oh, it's just like a form, but it's actually multiple forms. Kind of like when you draw the pecs. Same thing with the breasts. It's like there's forms there on top of another form. So drawing is literally just like taking a form and then putting another form on top of it, and then getting some gesture in there, and then getting it in the right perspective. And then once you do all that, then you got to shade it right. You got to shade around the form. So it's some difficult stuff, but you can figure it out eventually. Um, he goes over the more of the planes. He goes over how it's the body's derived of two blocks, the upper body and the hips, and also there's a head as well. Um, so that's very important. Um, Great drawings in here, by the way, from Ken. More simplified stuff. He's going over more of shapes, the shapes that it divides into. Very important stuff. You got to remember those big forms. That's what Bridgman teaches you. Figure out that head, figure out that torso, and figure out that pelvis. Then move it around a ton. I mean, the first I think it's like the first 10 pages of the Bridgman book are probably the most important things you will learn in your beginning process of drawing. So one day I'm going to go over the Bridgman books because I think they're super important. To a degree. I think they're very confusing at some points, and I definitely think that there are some things that are not. There are other options that are better, but yeah. Overlap. He goes over overlap. He goes over foreshortening. Very important stuff. I believe we are on our final pages here. He goes over the perspective of the head. How you can be in 3-point. He goes over head drawings too. This is kind of important stuff if you're drawing like a close up or something like that. Um, which you're going to be doing a lot of in comic book drawing. The funny thing about comic books is if you actually look at comic books, when I first started drawing, I would look at comic books to kind of learn to draw the figure, and I'd find out that a lot of it was just head. Like it was a lot of heads or a lot of shoulders or a lot of stuff like that. And you're like, I want the full body or the legs would be cut off or something like that, or there would just be legs, and you're like, but that's composition, that's art, because if it was just figures, it would look like Hal Foster drawings, and there's nothing wrong with Hal Foster, but thank Jack Kirby for that, dynamic, uh, those dynamic panels that you see in comics. All right, and I think we're on our last page. Oh no, we got I think one more. Goes over the forms or the planes of the head. Seems like it's really difficult. It is, but it's not something that like if you do it enough, you'll eventually get it down. Like I said, drawing is just kind of the best way you become an artist is you learn what you need to do. Some of it's confusing in the beginning and you're like, "Oh, I don't understand that." But you have like these eureka moments, and when you do, it's like failing over and over and over again, and then you hit that eureka moment and then it all begins to make sense. And man, Ken does some great drawing in here. I think the last thing I look over is how he goes over. He even goes over light and shadow. That's a great drawing, by the way. I'm going to go through some drawings in the back because you get these great drawings here, Some of his stuff, look at this. Sorry, just look at this page. It's an amazing drawing. But, he draws in this very, like, when he's teaching you how to draw, he draws in this very mechanical way, kind of this very blocky way, and then he gets these amazing drawings, which we'll just go over very quickly. I mean, look at that. I mean, he goes from that to that. He goes over the deltoid block and how to break it down to soften it up and to, I mean, you're basically taking form. So you're taking something that's two-dimensional and then you are blocking it out. So you're making it rugged or rough. And then you're smoothing it out again. And you're like, well, why am I doing this? And the reason why you're doing it is because you want it to look like it has dimension. So it sounds very obvious. It's really difficult to understand. I'm still trying to understand it to this day. But anyways, that's Ken Landgraf. Awesome artist. It's so cool that he has, because I would love to get certain artists like how-tos. How does this guy do it? What's his process? And Ken is one of those guys. He also has a YouTube channel where he does a lot of inking, and it's so amazing that you can look at Ken Landgraf stuff. I wish he did some pencil work on his YouTube channel. He doesn't. It's basically inking. I don't know if he values. I'm not going to speak for him. I don't know if he values inking more. The inking process more than the penciling process. I'm not sure, but a lot of his stuff is inking, but on his channel. But I'm saying "but" a lot. But yeah, you should check him out. Ken is awesome artist, awesome book. Yeah, he's got I think he's got 6 books or 7 books, and they're all chock full of important information. I'm probably gonna go through his female anatomy book next at some point. So yeah, that is. I'm gonna call this video "How to Draw Comics the Outlaw Way." Comic Book Anatomy by Ken Landgraf. And let's just take a look at this. If you buy his book on eBay, he will give you a nice sketch. I got a Wolverine one on one of them, and I was like, I got Wolverine. Wish I had gotten the Punisher. That would have been sick. But yeah. So check it out. Thank you, Ken, for putting this awesome book out. And I love. Sorry, real quick, I want to go over this. It has this very computer paper feel to it. And it's so DIY, but that's what I love about it. I love DIY stuff. I have to be careful when I store these because I actually destroyed one of them in the back because it was next to another book and I didn't realize it was like that. But yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. Check out Ken Landgraf. He's got a YouTube channel. Just look up Ken Landgraf. Look him up on eBay. He has some awesome comic book anatomy books, and he also does commissions for a really, really cheap price. New York City Outlaws at some point is going to come. I don't know why I'm selling Ken Landgraf here. I just am a huge Ken Landgraf fan, so I am going to support. I'm going to advertise Ken Landgraf for free. New York City Outlaws is finally going to come out at some point in a complete condition. I wanted to pick up the single issues, but I'm not looking to spend fucking $400 on it when there's a book coming out sometime, I think in April or something. And it's gonna be $30. So I'm like, I'll just wait until it comes out. So yeah, Ken Landgraf. Just I don't know what else to say. He's just amazing.